Guys, am I audible now?
Yes, yes, you're okay now.
Okay. I'm really sorry. Something is playing funny on my system. Okay, let's begin. Sorry. Uh, hmm, what happened? I'm not able to share. Hmm, Okay. Seems as I lost connectivity and I've lost my sharing access as well. Just give me a minute. I'll just pause it. Yes, you have to bear with me for just one more minute. Seems that share. Right. So guys, can you see my screen now again? Everyone?
Yes, 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 yes.
Great. Let's quickly move on to our slides. So my question that I was asking last time is, do we understand the difference between a defect and defective? Who would like to answer? So Anthony, you were answering last time. And then we all had this problem. So would you like to answer it again? Defect and
Uh,
defective?
I was saying that a defect, probably you can say that a defect is a single unit of a fault, while
Okay.
defective is, uh, let me call it a summation of or a huge number of defects or faults.
You're almost there, and but the answer I'll accept it. So yes, you're right. So a defect is so a unit, like say if I say um, a car, a car is and in entirety it's a single unit, it's a single car. Now I may have a dent on the car. I may have the window broken. I may have some scratch on the car. This can be considered as defect. So the definition of defect when it comes to a product is that a defect may not render the product completely useless. So if I have a dent on a car, or if I have a scratch on a car, or if the wipers are not working, that doesn't necessarily means the car will not work. If the car is working, you know, then it's okay. But if the car engine is broken, it's not working, that will be considered as defective. Okay. So you are absolutely right. One or more defect may decrease the value of the product but will not render it useless. But if a summation of defect or a defect which will not allow the product to be used at all can be called as defective. So that is the difference between a defect and defective. So for example, when I say defect per unit, so if I say I'm a manufacturer of pen, a pen can have four different defects. So it can happen that the pen, the cap is scratched or broken. There is some different color on the body of the pen. The nib is broken. There is the ink is spilling out. So these are the different kind of defects. To identify how many defects a unit can produce, we need to understand what kind of defects can happen with that particular pen. So in this example of pen that I've just given, I'm saying that a pen that is being manufactured by me can have four defects. So if I want to know what is and every and if the below example that you see on the screen, if I want to understand what is a DPU, defect per unit, so for example, I am manufacturing 100 pens and there are 200 defects that I have identified. So one pen has one defect, other pen has two, some have none at all. So the summation of overall defects divided by the total number of units that I am producing will help me to find out the DPU or defect per unit. Everyone understood? It's clear? Defect, defective, and DPU?
Clear to me. Clear to me.
Okay. Rosemary and Adnico?
Yes, it's okay.
Okay, good. All right, let's move on. DPMO. So now that we have understood what is DPU, let's look into DPMO. So DPMO is one of the few important Six Sigma metrics that you should get comfortable with if you are associated with Six Sigma. In order to understand DPMO, it is best if you first understand both the nomenclature and the nuances, such as the difference between defect and defective. Nomenclature. Defect. It is symbolized by capital D, unit by capital U. Opportunity to have a defect is O. So in order to properly discuss DPMO, we first must explore the differences between defects and defective. Defective. Defective suggests that the value or function of the entire unit or product has been compromised. So that product cannot be used. It is useless. Defective items will always have a last at least one defect. Typically, however, it takes multiple defects and or critical defects to cause the item to be defective. Defect. A defect is an error, mistake, flaw, fault, or some type of imperfection that reduces the value of a product or unit. A single defect may or may not render the product or unit defective depending on the specifications of the customer. Summary. Defect means that a part of unit is bad. Defective means the whole unit is bad. Okay. Now let's jump to DPMO. So now let us turn our attention to defining opportunities so that you can understand defect per million opportunities. And why do we use million opportunities? Million as a measurement or a benchmark. Why not thousands or billion or trillion? So let's look into that as well. Opportunities. So opportunities are total number of possible defects. So like the example I gave that I manufacture a pen, there are only four possibilities that it can have a defect. So let's look into it. So therefore, if a unit has six possible defects, then each unit produced is equal to six defect opportunities. So when I say opportunities, it may not happen. That's the reason opportunities. If we produce 100 units, then there are 600 defect opportunities. That is one unit having six defects. Based on the example, overall 600 defect opportunities. Calculating DPMO or defect per million opportunity, the equation is DPMO equal to in brackets D, that is defects, divide by into brackets units into number or into number of opportunities into 1 million. So if there are 600 defect opportunities per unit, six defect opportunities per unit, there are an average of four defects every 100 unit. Opportunities 6 into 100, 600. Defect rate is 4 per 600 opportunities. DPMO would be 4 divided by 600 into 1 million, that is 6,667. This is the DPMO. So what is the reason or significance of 1 million? Converting defect rates to a per million value becomes necessary when the performance of your process approaches Six Sigma level. When this happens, the number of defects shrinks to virtually nothing. In fact, if you recall from what is Six Sigma module, Sigma is 3.4 defects per million opportunities. By using 1 million opportunity as a barometer, we have the resolution in the measurement to count defect all the way up to 6 sigma. Okay, that's the reason a million is used as a benchmark in DPMO calculation. Roll throughput yield. Now, this is another beautiful technique, very easy to work upon with. So, roll throughput yield (RTY) is a process performance measure that provides insight into the cumulative effects of an entire process. RTY means RTY measures the yield for each of the several process steps and provides a probability that a unit will come through that process defect free. RTY allows us to expose hidden factory by providing visibility in the yield of each process step. So yield is nothing but an output. So if you remember, when we were looking into process flow, there was a statement that was made that every input becomes an whatever is the output becomes the in of process A is the input of process B, and so on and so forth. So whatever is the input uh, of the process before output of the process before me, it becomes an input for me. Whatever is my output becomes input for the next process, so on and so forth. So this helps us to identify the poorest performing process steps. So we are talking about process step here and gives us clues into where to look to find the most impactful process improvement opportunities. So RTY is found by multiplying the yields of each process step. Now let's see how the yield is calculated. So let us take the 5-step process below and calculate the RTY using the multiplication method mentioned above. So for example, the yield or output of process step 1 is say 0.90, process step 2 0.91, 0.99, and so on.
We have lost you.
Of project management, at least from the defined phase, they come into PMP or project management professional course. So defined phase, as the name suggests, it's all about defining the project. It's all about defining the problem. It's all about defining multiple things that will help you to kickstart your project. So let's begin. So in the define phase, we will cover the following topics: an overview of Six Sigma, the fundamentals of Six Sigma, Lean Six Sigma projects, and Lean fundamentals. So each of the topic will be presented as a 20 to 40-minute course. There might be some quiz. So let's begin. Okay. Overview of Six Sigma. So in completion of the course, we will be able to define Six Sigma, analyze the Six Sigma levels and their corresponding defect rates, understand the Six Sigma approach and the relationship between our inputs and outputs, explain the DMAC methodology, the 5 phases of Six Sigma, and list the Six Sigma belts and explain their roles and responsibilities. So what is Six Sigma? So Sigma is in statistics refers to standard deviation, which is used to measure variation. Variation is the enemy of any process. So to maintain quality, we need to understand, manage, and minimize process variation. So uh, it's all about variation. Six Sigma is all about reducing variation using different tools and different methodologies. So Six Sigma is a business management strategy which aspires to improve the quality of any process by minimizing variation. So goal of Six Sigma is to make sure the process average operates to approximately 6 standard deviations away from customer upper and lower limit specification. So if you see, this helps to ensure that the process has enough room to float before approaching the specification limits. Now, I know it might be a bit new for most of the people. Anthony has already been a white belt, so he may be able to understand this concepts a bit, but I'll try to simplify it. So, for example, this mean or average line that starts at zero is means 99.997% defect free. So this is what my customer wants every time I give them a product or a service. But because of multiple factors, internal and external, controllable and non-controllable, it's not always possible to give a product that is always completely defect free. There might be some or other defects that may or may not occur at the same time. That's the reason we have Six Sigma. So if you see, client may say that, okay, uh, if there are few errors which are visible or not visible, I'm okay. Or if they are not, so you have to, it has to play only between this particular two red lines, lower and upper specification limit. So if I give you an example, um, let's say I have to purchase a bottle of water, a 500 ml bottle of water. Now, every time I purchase a bottle of water, I expect it to be either completely full or say a 10 ml less than 500 ml is okay. But if the bottle is half full, like it's only 200 or 300 ml, would you pay money for that full bottle of water? Complete money? No, right? You won't pay. So that is when the customers will lose faith in the product, or you might even uh, face code sweets or any kind of problems. So it's all about making sure that product or service that we are promising to deliver is error free every time. So at Six Sigma level, a process yields only 3.4 defects for every million opportunities. We'll come to why we talk about million, but right now just understand this. Six Sigma, any process which is operating at Six Sigma, the process yield or output only has 3.4 defects per million opportunities. That means 99.9997% of products are defect free. Any questions, guys, so far in this slide? I know there are like at least there will be more questions, but anything that you feel that you'd like to get an explanation on? Anyone? Let me see if I can play a video to quickly give you view.
View the define phase of the DMAIC process.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today
Guys, are
we
you
are
able to
going
hear
to
the
talk
audio?
about a 5-step improvement process known as DMAIC. DMAIC stands for Define, Measure, Analyze, Improve, and Control. Define
Anyone?
is the first phase of the DMAIC process. Here, we define the project via the project charter. The key output of this phase, the project charter, is a very important document that will be updated throughout the DMAIC process.
Guys, am I audible or have I lost anyone? Because no one is saying anything.
No, we are following.
You're following. Okay, great.
Yes,
So Anthony, were you able to hear the audio for the video that I played?
yes, I'm getting it clearly.
Okay, let me just play again.
Welcome to Lean Six Sigma Pro's free module on the Introduction to DMAIC Process Part 1, where we will review the define phase of the DMAIC process.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are going to talk about a 5-step improvement process known as DMAIC. DMAIC stands for Define, Measure, Analyze, Improve, and Control. Define is the first phase of the DMAIC process. Here, we define the project via the project charter. The key output of this phase, the project charter, is a very important document that will be up.
Let me just see if I can.
Hello, Julie. I'm glad you were able to make it this afternoon. I'm afraid we need your help again.
Well, as always, I am happy to be of assistance. What's going on?
6 Sigma.
Six Sigma?
Yes. Our corporate office
Guys, is
is
this
asking
video
if
audible?
we have it,
Are you able
and
to
I am not
listen to
quite
what
sure
this guy
what
said?
it is. Is it good or bad? I'm guessing it is good, so I told them we have it.
Well, Six Sigma is a quality improvement or problem-solving methodology.
Well, that's a relief to hear.
Yes. Six Sigma was developed in the 80s at Motorola. The goal of the program was to develop Six Sigma quality by improving processes. Six Sigma quality translates to 3.4 defects per million opportunities. Utilizing the Six Sigma project management approach called DMAIC, we work toward this goal.
DMAIC? That doesn't sound very good.
Well, it stands for define, measure, analyze, improve and control. This 5-phase approach is used for solving problems. We begin in the define phase by defining the problem. We also define the customer requirements in this phase. Then, we measure through observation and data collection in the second phase to gain a thorough understanding.
Well, that sounds like a reasonable approach.
Yes. Then, we analyze the data in the third phase to understand the root cause or causes of the problem. We sometimes call these the critical X's.
Critical X's? Like my ex-wives?
No. As in X's and Y's. You know, there is an output we call Y. For example, defect rate. And the X's are the inputs. Those things that affect the output.
Ah, I get it. For example, the defect rate on a machine might be related to the speed or the material. These might be X's.
Exactly. Once we've determined their key factors or root causes, we develop and select solutions in the improve phase. Finally, in the control phase, we develop a plan for process management going forward. Things like control plans, process dashboards, or statistical process control are used.
Excellent. Now, I must admit, I also heard some rumblings about belts. Would I need to go out and buy everyone colored belts in order to do Six Sigma?
No, not at all. In Six Sigma, we have master black belts, green belts, and yellow belts. Master black belts and black belts are the experts who lead and advise. Green belts can also lead projects, and they are considered key contributors to process improvement. While yellow belts have a basic knowledge of Six Sigma and its tools.
Excellent. How do we become a certain level belt, such as a black belt?
Well, you become certified by completing training, executing projects, and passing an exam.
Well, you've done it again. Thanks for educating us in Six Sigma.
You are very welcome.
By the way, where did you learn so much about Six Sigma?
From my friends at EMS Consulting Group. www.emsstrategies.com. They offer training, consulting, and other online resources.
Excellent. I will be visiting www.emsstrategies.com straight away.
So, बस एक का ही डर रहता है हम लोग को। अगर मैं लड़ाई झगड़ा करके जाते हैं रोड में गाड़ी पे भी चल जाते हैं ऐसे किसी नहीं
All
आते
right, guys, how did you find the video?
quite informative.
Okay, good. All right, so I'll be sharing, as I said, whatever videos I'll be playing in this session, I'll be sharing that one with you as well, so you can refer to them as and when required. So we will now move on to what is Six Sigma levels. So now that we say Six Sigma, so let's understand what Six Sigma is. So Six Sigma level measures the number of standard deviation between the process average and the nearest customer specification. So for example, in the image shown below, customer upper and lower specification limit, that is USL and LSL, are narrower than the width of the process. So if you see the entire process, they are narrower than the width of the process. So USL and LSL below stay about one standard deviation away from the process average. Therefore, the process is operated at 1 sigma. That means approximately 70% of the products are defective. Lower Six Sigma levels mean higher defect rates, and higher Sigma level means lower defect rates. So when I say Six Sigma, Sigma level is the measure, 6 is the goal that we have to achieve. So in real life, very few companies achieve Six Sigma because it definitely requires a lot of investment on training, grooming, and making changes in the system to actually achieve a Six Sigma level. Uh, Company who operate at Five Sigma level, they are also doing good. Definitely, there are errors or defects which happens, but uh, the companies or organizations who are really serious, like Toyota or Motorola, these companies they invest a lot or on Six Sigma practices and trying to develop or work on things that helps them to bring down defects or errors in the production. Right, moving on to the next one. And guys, if you have a question, please stop me there and there itself. I'll be more than happy to answer. Okay. Any questions from this slide? Okay, I take that as a no. Let's move on. Okay, so what is Six Sigma? Let's continue. This table shows each Sigma level corresponding defect rate and DPMO, defect per million opportunities. The higher the Sigma level, the lower the defect rate and DPMO. So if you see, we have all the Sigma levels 2, 3, 3.5, 4, 5, and 6. And what is the accuracy percentage of each Sigma level? And what is the defect per million opportunity for each Sigma level? So this is definitely important question from examination perspective. If you might get a question asking, telling you, please let us know at a 4 sigma level, what is the DPMO? So that will be 6210. Or they might ask what is at 3 sigma level or whatever it may be. So, but they will ask, you might get a question asking about what is a sigma level and what is the corresponding DPMO, that is defect per million opportunity. So let's see some examples. So in IT, a process operating at 3 sigma has a defect rate of approximately 7%. Telecommunication, healthcare, no. So these are just examples, these are numbers. It may vary from process to process, but this is a history that is good to know again from an exam perspective. So how exactly the Six Sigma history and timeline is and it has been. So it started from 1900s where it's Toyota and Ford and then Boeing who invested or started working heavily around Six Sigma. And then around 1985 to 1995, GE and Allied Signals, they invested a lot in Six Sigma. And after that, then you have other companies or other large companies following them and reaping benefits out of them. So like Bombardier, Nokia, Sony, Crane, 2 Point, Amex, and so on and so forth. So now this is the most important question, and this is something you should know definitely as a Six Sigma practitioner. And this forms the basis of entire Six Sigma. This forms the basis. So if you understand this very well, this the rest of the journey will be more or less easier. And this is not difficult, it is simple. So let's understand what is the Six Sigma approach. Y, that is capital Y, equal to F stands for function and in brackets X. So Six Sigma approach uses a transfer function, which is a mathematical expression of the relationship between input and output of a system. So Y equal to function of X, where Y measure of output of a process. Fx function of X, and X means factors or inputs that may affect Y. So it is read as Y is a function of X. The objective of Six Sigma is to identify the critical X's that have the most influence on the output Y and adjust them so that Y improves. So let's take an example. Um, now that we know Y stands for output and X stands for inputs, so it may happen that you may have, obviously, you will have more than one input and you may have more than one output as well. So, Rosemary, can you tell me what are the inputs required to prepare a cup of tea? Rosemary, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Sorry, what
Yeah,
did you say? Sorry, I was
yeah.
distracted.
I asked that if I want to prepare a cup of tea, what will be the inputs which will be required to prepare a cup of tea?
You would need water, you
Okay,
would need a tea bag,
okay,
and you need some form of heat. So,
okay,
and a cup, and a teacup,
okay,
or a
okay,
kettle.
okay. Right. Now, great. So, well, very well, Rosemary. So now definitely you'll require water, tea bag. You would require some vessel or utensil to prepare the tea in it. You might require something to heat. It might be electric stove or a cooker. And definitely you would require a cup to actually pour the tea into it. So these are the inputs required, uh, which are physical, but again, there is one more input, human effort, to set this in sequence, to put water in the vessel, put it on a heater. Then, once the water is boiling, pour it, put the tea bag. Once everything is done, remove the tea bag and enjoy the tea. So, that is where the process comes into place. But right now, we are not going to touch into that right now. But these are the factors, so these are the inputs which are required to prepare tea. What is the output? So after doing or after preparing tea, what do we get? We get a tea, right? That we get along with that, or is just
Yes.
tea? What do we get? Okay. Say obviously the tea is hot. There will be steam coming out of tea. Okay. Uh, you'll get. So these are two things which are visible: the tea actually and the steam. So these are the two outputs of the process of preparing a tea. Okay. There will be taste. There will be freshness, there will be energy which cannot be measured straight away, but that is also an output after consuming the tea. So, in short, if you understand this very well, you have cracked half of the code, how the input and output works. So, y is a function of x means your output is influenced by your x, that is your input. Now, in case if I use a different tea bag, the taste will change. Yeah, definitely. If I add milk to the process, the taste will change. Yes. If I add sugar to the process, taste will change. Yes. Um, if I add more water and less of tea bag, again the taste will change, possibly it might impact the quality. So understanding this, how exactly X, your input, will influence Y is very important. Same goes with the food. So when we prepare, um, say, any soup, if we add more salt to it, it might actually not give the taste that we need. Or if we add a spice more or less than required, or we add too much meat into the soup instead of an appropriate amount, the soup taste or the way it looks may change. So whatever you do with your input will affect your output. That is what y is equal to function of x means. But in Six Sigma, we have to identify which are the most critical x's. Now, not always just looking at it, you will be able to identify which is the most critical one. So we'll be using different tools to identify or understand which X is more critical and which is more influencing your output. So we will learn that as well. So in order to reduce variation, if you identify all the inputs, identify the critical inputs, and you fix them, you automatically reduce the variation and improve your product. That's in short is what you do in the entire Six Sigma cycle or all 5 cycles. But they are done in 2 stages. So guys, everyone clear so far what I have told you guys? Anyone has any doubt or question? Because this is very important, very, very important. If you have understood this, as I said, you have cracked half of the code of learning Six Sigma. Anyone? Anthony, Nico, Rosemary, anyone has any questions or doubts? Okay. Right, I'll take that as a no, and let's begin the next slide. So let's take an example, a simple example of a pizza delivery company that desires to meet customers' expectations of on-time delivery. So in this case, y equal to function of x. So y is my output and x are my input. So y, what is y? Percent of on-time delivery. So I want to have higher on-time delivery percentage. X is, what is the x or input? Factors that affect on-time delivery. So let's say after doing brainstorming, they identified that traffic might be one probable input that or factor that might affect on-time delivery, number of deliveries per delivery driver batch, accuracy of directions provided to the driver, reliability of the delivery vehicle. So these are the 4 X's that they have identified based on the business model. Now, Six Sigma approach helps to narrow down and identify the vital axis that significantly influences the Y or the on-time pizza deliveries. Y equal to function of X is a very powerful concept and requires the ability to measure the output and quantify the inputs of a process. So only those significant x's are used into y equal to function of x equation. So it could happen that there are more than 4 x's that we see in this example. There might be 10 x's. It might be that, number of sick people in the company, people coming late to office, delivery vehicle, there is no fuel availability. So there might be multiple x's which may be impacting the on-time delivery in this example. But only the significant ones, only the ones which are really critical are to be used. And that is what we'll be learning over a period of time, how to identify which is the most critical X. Sometimes it might be based on like people usually who are experienced into their field or into their business line of businesses, they are able to identify it very easily because they have been doing that business day in and day out. But in real life, it has to be statistically proved that your X is critical or significant enough and it is influencing Y at a very high level. Okay. So we will be using statistical tools that will help us to get that information whether it's significant or not. To achieve Six Sigma, you need to improve your process performance by minimizing the process variation so that your process has enough room to fluctuate within the limits of customer specifications, or shifting your process average so that it is centered between the limits of your customer specifications. So DMAC is a systematic and rigorous methodology which can be applied to any process in order to achieve Six Sigma. It consists of 5 phases of a project: define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. You may get a question, what does C stands for in DMAC? And they might give you multiple choice or it might be just fill in the blanks. So you should know this very well, that DMAC stands for define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. Does anyone know which company operates at the highest sigma level, or which industry operates at the very highest sigma level? Anyone? Anthony, you're white belt. You may have some idea. Which industry operates at the maximum sigma levels? Anyone would like to give a try? Nico, Rosemary, would you guys like to give it a try? Which industry operates at the highest sigma level as per you? It's okay, no answer is a wrong answer, but if you don't try, you will not try to realize it. So I would like you to try, give it a try. Tell me which industry, as per you, operates at the very highest sigma levels.
I think it's aviation.
Absolutely right. Aviation industry or airline industry operates at the highest sigma level. They operate at 17 sigma level. So imagine if they operate at 6 sigma level, that means for every million flight, there will be 3.4 flight crashes, and that will be a disaster. The airline company would be leaking money, and people will not be investing or traveling into aircrafts. So they operate at 17 sigma level, whereby the 17 is divided into two parts. Your flight takeoff and landing, it operates at 12 sigma level, and your baggage which is checked in, operates at 5 sigma level. So the chances that once you board a flight, there are chances that it may be delayed, or it may be lost, or it might not be even carried in your plane that you're boarding. So that's how airline industry works. They operate at the most highest sigma levels in the industry, all the industries. Good. All right. So let's move on. Each phase has a specific purpose and specific tools and techniques which help in achieving the objective of that phase. So I said in every phase, we'll have different tools, different techniques, and that is what we'll be learning. So in define, what we are going to do, we are define and quantify the problem and objective. This becomes really very, very critical. Why? If you don't quantify the problem and define it clearly, you might end up doing more work than required. So if you are trying to identify, say, Rosemary who works in a hospital, for example, if you are trying to make sure that um, whatever reports are being made, blood reports or test reports, are on timely manner, but during the course of identifying or analyzing stuff, you end up venturing into patient files that is adding more time, it will be a mess, complete mess. So defining and quantifying the problem and objective is very, very important, and we'll see how we are going to do it. We'll see how the problem has to be written. We will see how it is defined well. Next comes the measure phase. So in measure phase, we baseline the process. When we say baseline, what exactly that means? Baselining means knowing where exactly the process stands right now. So it may happen that you have documented processes of how to do certain things. But in real life, what exactly is happening on the ground may be different to what it's there documented as a process. So baselining is means that whatever is happening on the ground is the same process that is documented. So it is also called as a as is process or should be process. Validate measures. So when you say validate measures, whatever you're going to measure, it might be any of the X or input. You have to validate it whether the measurement system that you're using is correct. Obviously, we will be using sampling methodologies. We cannot just go on measuring anything and everything that we get, because if we start doing it, the project will never end. But we have to make sure that we have to validate the measurements, where they are coming from, the systems that are being used. That is also something that we'll learn. And all and identify all the possible excess and dependence wise. So when I say possible access, all the possible access, everything. Here we are not going to say that, no, I'm only going to look into significant access. No, we have to first identify all the access, that is all the inputs which are required for the process that we are trying to improve. And then all the dependent y's, because y equal to function of x. So the reason we say dependent is x, all the y, any y, one y or two y, one output or two output or three output that you get out of the process are all dependent on the inputs or excess that you have identified. That is the reason we say identify all possible excess and dependent ones. Analyze and validate causes, identifying critical factors. Analyze and validate causes, identifying critical factors. So here we will actually go ahead and analyze the excess or the inputs, and then the identifying and the critical factors, which are they really critical or significant enough. That is what we do in analyze phase using different tools. Improve. Now that you have defined the problem, you have quantified it, you have baselined the process, you have identified all the x's and y's, you have analyzed which x's are really critical. But now the actual fun starts is how to develop a solution to improve that X further, the critical X further, so that it can influence the Y. That is what we do the improve phase. Last is the control phase. Implement and sustain solutions. So developing solutions and deploying them is definitely an important part. But if you are not able to sustain that solution for a longer time, you will not be able to reap out the benefits of the project. So controlling or sustaining the implemented solution also becomes very critical. So how to do it, what tools are we going to use is something that we'll learn in the control phase. Guys, any questions so far from this slide? Okay, one. Okay, so let's understand the deliverables. So goals, objectives, and tools and deliverables in detail. So in define phase, the goal and objectives are, so define phase is the most important aspect of any Six Sigma project. It defines what the project is setting out to do and scopes the effort. So what exact project you're going to do? What is in scope, what is out scope? You define it in the define phase. It understands the project's why and how to measure it. So it understands the why, that is output, very clearly, and also knows how to measure it well. Goals of define phase. Establish a solid foundation and business case for a Six Sigma project. Quantify the current state of the project to set boundaries around it. that is technically scoping what is in scope and out scope, determine and quantify the goal. Say why we have to establish, quantify, and determine. So, guys, we need to understand one thing, that we are going to run a project to improve something, and that will require resources in terms of human effort, in terms of time, in terms of space, uh, and that is all has to be approved by the management. For that, you have to prepare a business case, a business project. You have to quantify it. You have to determine the goals. So, for example, uh, you say that I would like to save, you know, 5,000 naira worth of electricity every month in my house. Now, what I can do? No, I know the example is not right because most of the times you don't have electricity thanks to NEPA, but it's fine. But if I consider the fact that you are getting electricity around the clock, but the bills are high, what can you do? So, what has to be defined well is what comes in your boundaries. What is a business case? So at the end of the project, we'd like to save 5,000 naira per month on saving electricity. What is the current state? Currently, we are spending, say, 15,000 naira, and we are only going to cover any and every appliance which is powered by electricity. Determine and quantify the goal is how we are going to save it, is the units of electricity measured, and what is the cost per unit. That is what uh, will help us to identify how much money I will save at the end of the project once I have once I reach 5,000 naira, or how many units. That is what a short example is. So after defining and quantifying the problems and goals, the define phase deals with valuation, team, scope, project planning, timeline, stakeholders, voice of customers, voice of business. So we will be learning all this in define phase one by one. Any questions so far, guys, from this slide?
No.
All clear? Good. Move on to tools and deliverables. Project charter. So project charter is a contract between a project team, the champion, and the stakeholders. So a project team would be someone like you and me. We will be part of the project. The champion would be either someone who is a process expert, or he might be head of department. Stakeholders will be anyone and everyone who is impacted by that project. So it might be the top management, middle management. So anyone who is going to be impacted will be stakeholders, and that we'll see in the next case how to identify stakeholders. So as we go through the project charter, it defines the what, why, and when, and by whom of the project, and includes business case, problem statement, project objective and scope, project timeline, and project team. Now, what, why, when, and whom, uh, in easy way, is also called as a RACI. RACI stands for responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. So we'll see how a RACI matrix is built, and how it helps to sort out problems at larger levels when people are involved in a project. Because at RACI, or we don't know who is responsible, accountable, consulted, or informed for a given activity, it becomes difficult to actually move the project smoothly further. So we will see how it is created and how it can be made. Further to this, stakeholder assessment for identifying gaps in stakeholder support and developing strategies to overcome those gaps. High level Pareto chart. This is a statistical, very simple tool, and this can be used. So, guys, whatever you're going to learn in Six Sigma uh, can be used on a daily basis as well for a specific purpose only. It's not that when any other tools that you see that you'll be seeing cannot be used as a single standalone tool for getting output. So whatever tools like Pareto, RACI, Project Charter, and a lot of them, you can use it as a standalone tool to fix problems or identify gaps. Um, We'll be also learning how to use process maps, voice of customer, voice of business, and CTQs, critical to quality requirements. In measure phase, we will establish the baseline performance of the process. It prioritizes potential X's and measure X's and Y. So your inputs and outputs. Identify the objective of the measure phases, identify all the possible X's, assess reliability of the measurement system. So when I say measurement, so obviously your inputs, there will be some measure to measure, there might be some unit of measurement, or there might be a way to measure them. Why? The reason we have to assess the reliability of measurement system is to make sure that uh, your excess are not influenced by some external factor or internal factor. So it could happen that if I'm preparing a pot of soup for say 20 people, every time I prepare a pot of soup for 20 people, uh, if it's a small time restaurant, they will just sprinkle salt based on the experience. But if the same pot of soup is being prepared in a five-star hotel, for example, they will have some kind of measurement in place. They will have some controls in place. They will only use a particular brand of salt in that place. So they might say, okay, behind every pot of soup that we are going to cook, we will only put, say, 100 grams of salt. I'm just getting a hypothetical number, guys. 100 grams is too much. You will not be able to consume that soup. So validate the assumptions and improvement goals. So when we are running a project, we are running the project based on an assumption, okay? But we need to validate that based on statistical tools, based on the data available on hand, and also the improvement goals. So if I say I want to improve X or my inputs in a way that it influences my output, where I'm able to save $1 million per year, it's definitely outstanding vision to save $1 million per year. But if your business is doing $200,000 business every 6 months, there is no way you can save $1 million. So validating your assumptions and improvement goals are very critical, and that is done in the measure phase. Then determine the cost of poor quality. What is cost of poor quality? We will learn it in detail. It is not difficult. It's very easy. Refine process understanding. So going on ground, understanding the process, because it may happen that we are able to see it from top at a very superficial level. Speaking to process experts, understanding how the process functions is equally important. Determine process stability and process capability. These are again lovely terms, and this helps a lot. Is your process stable? Means, say for example, I have a car. If I drive my car for 10 kilometers for 10 days, I will get the same kind of uh, feeling on the 11th day as well, or on the 30th day as well. Is my process capable enough to produce results? When I say capable, if I want to drive at a speed of 100 kilometers per hour every time, I should be able to get the same average out of my car. So is it capable enough to give me that kind of output? Is it stable enough to give me that kind of output? These are denoted by statistical terms. We'll be learning them, and we will also do it on the tool that I'll be sharing with you. Identifying process stability and process capability. They are not difficult, they are easy to understand and easy to do. Okay. And why this is important to identify. So if your process is not stable or capable enough, then doing the project will be a waste of time. Okay. That's the reason identifying or determining process stability and process capability becomes utterly important in the measure phase itself. Moving on to tools and deliverables. we will be mapping the process, for which we'll be using visual processes like SIPOC, that stands for Supplier Input Process Output Customer, and value stream maps. So value stream maps usually are used in manufacturing processes. Can be used in other processes as well, but it requires a good effort because it is not something that you can make on a computer file, a computer program. If you really want to get the feel of a value stream map, then it has to be done on a big chart paper to get a better visibility, uh, across what exactly is happening. Then we will also learn failure modes and effect analysis, FEMIA, to identify and prioritize possible process failure modes. Now, what is a process failure mode? I'll just give you a heads up, not go too deep into it. I'm driving a car. A car stops suddenly. What is wrong? What can be wrong with the car? Car stops suddenly. There is no fuel. One. Something is wrong with the ignition. Two. Something is wrong with the engine. Something might be wrong with the gearbox. So there might be multiple possibilities that a car might not function. So those are the failure modes in which a car can stop functioning. So FEMIA helps us to identify and prioritize the possible failure measures so that we can identify and fix them beforehand itself. Then we will be looking at cause and effect diagrams and X and Y matrix. Again, don't, it's again just it's the names can be agonizing. The reason I'm saying agonizing at times is because you are fairly new to it. The names might be confusing, like what is this cause and effect matrix? What is this X and Y matrix? What is FEMIA? These are new to you, but believe me, once you understand how it is done, it will be helping you a lot, even in your regular life. Statistical tools. This is where we'll also learn about basic and descriptive statistics, what exactly they mean. Then we will learn measurement system analysis. So this is where we do a measurement of the system through which we measure our outputs and inputs. And what are the tools? We use variable or attribute gauge RNR or gauge linearity, accuracy, and stability. So we'll be learning them in our systems and tools. We'll see how we do. Then we'll learn basic control charts to assess process stability. We'll understand what is process capability indices, CPK and PPK, and sigma levels, and data collection plan. That is required for you to do further analysis. Okay. Moving on to analyze phase. So in analyze phase, we analyze the relationship between process performance and the potential root causes and establish a reliable hypothesis for improving a solution. It tests the XY relationship, input-output relationship, and verifies or quantifies important X's. What are the significant X's? So this is where we start to identify our critical X's or critical input factors out of whatever input factors we have identified. Establish the transfer function y equal to function of x. Validate the list of critical X's and impacts. Create a beta improvement plan, a pilot plan. Obviously, if you identify a plan, say you have identified that in preparing tea, I require 5 inputs. I'll name them A, B, C, D, E. Now, while after doing the define phase, measure phase, now in analyze phase, you identify that only A, B, and C or A, B, and D are more critical or more impactful to the output, that is the actual T. Now, you define A, that is water. You say that, you know what, instead of using regular tap water or mineral water, why I don't use mountain spring water? And that water is really very, very expensive. And you say, okay, if you use spring water, definitely you have tested it once and you find out that it's really nice, but that water is 10 times the cost of regular water. does it make sense to actually use something that is 10 times the cost of your regular water? Will you be able to make any money of the tea out of the tea that you're going to, produce? You won't, because if I go to a hotel or restaurant and order for a tea, it might end up for 200 naira. But if I add this water, the tea might become 500. So how many people will be willing to pay 500? So the pilot plan, whole idea of a pilot plan is to do it at a small scale to identify how much improvement has happened and then slowly and steadily apply that plan across the business. That is what we will do in a pilot plan. Tools and deliverables, we'll be learning hypothesis testing. Now, this is another fun tool. We'll be going through it in detail. Uh, I'll not talk more about it right now. So there are two methods, parametric and non-parametric. There are other tests like t-test, ANOVA, and chi-square. We'll also learn regression. Now, regression is very, very powerful tool. It helps you to predict the future based on the past data that you have with you. And it's very easy. As I said, you will be using the tool that I'll be sharing with you, called as Minitab. You just need to input data, just press a button, and the output is in front of you. It's that simple. You can also perform anything and everything that we'll be learning in Excel, but it is time consuming. And I always prefer using Minitab because that is the most easiest way to learn. Now we move on to the improve phase. So in improve phase, implement solutions to improve Y and address important X's. Statistically proven results from active study pilot, improvement implementation plan, updated stakeholder assessment, revise business case with return on investment. Now, obviously, the whole idea of doing a project is to improve. How would you measure improvement? The best way, or the always or the only way, should be that you have to, whatever is the output of the project, you should be able to quantify that in terms of money. How much money you're going to save it, how much money you're going to make out of it. There might be scenarios. So we have worked, like I was part of, as I said, multiple companies. I have worked in multiple industries. Few companies are not willing to give you the actual cost to actually identify the ROI. But there are ways to actually do that in way where you say that you have improved customer satisfaction or you have reduced errors that has helped us to reduce the headcount or not, to make sure that you are not rehiring people again and again. Because if errors are happening because of people, you can train them or you can ask them to leave. But if hiring itself is a problem, if you fix hiring, then you don't need to hire or rehire again and again, and you don't have to retrain guys because that is all cost. So it actually saves money straight away on a lot of aspects. Risk assessments and updated FEMIA. So FEMIA is done in two phases, in measure and in improve phase. So we will see why it is done. But you need to understand, you might get a question that is FEMIA done in more than one stage, or if you might get true or false saying that FEMIA is conducted in measure and improve phase two or false, something of that sort. You'll also identify the new process capability sigma. Now, the new process capability sigma is identified or has to be calculated and the sigma levels to see what has been the actual improvement or after you have implemented the solutions that you have identified. Tools and deliverables. Now, there are a lot of tools, but here DOE or design of experiments is something that you will get in this curriculum, but it's not part of greenbelt. You will have access to the course material of DOE. DOE is part of black belt curriculum. Pilot or plan study using hypothesis testing valid measurement system that will be learning, and implementation plan of planning, training, preparation to implement and process improvement. Last but not the least, we'll be doing the control phase. So in control phase is a common failure point for projects. Improvements are made, but gains are only temporary if the proper controls are not in place. It monitors the important access and why over time. That is one. The objectives are establish mechanisms to ensure that the process sustains improved performance, activate a reaction or mitigation plan if the process performance is not sustained. Tools that we'll be using, mostly you will be using or learning how to use different kind of control charts depending on the kind of data and situation. Then preparing a control plan document. We'll be also looking into different lean tools or methods of lean controls. Okay. So guys, that is what we'll be learning throughout the 5 phases. Let's say, so let's do one thing, guys. It's 140. Let's take a quick 10 to 15 minutes break. We'll be again back in 15 minutes and we'll continue. Is that okay, everyone?
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
The reason is, as I said, we learn, but if it becomes too heavy, it will be difficult. It will be difficult to digest it. So if you have any questions, please make a note of it. I'll be asking, I'll try to see how much you have captured or gathered after this break. So let's catch up in next 15 minutes. I'll just wait for a minute for Ajnike and then we'll start. In the meantime, guys, you have any questions?
Yes, I
Anthony,
am here.
Rosemary? Okay, great. Everyone is back. Guys, before I start, could you share me your personal email addresses so I can share you my Google Drive link for downloading all the content. Could you share it on the chat? Just share your personal email IDs. I will share all the content, the course material, the videos, and the tool that you would need to install. All right, so let's begin. Mm, So we start with roles and responsibilities. So roles in Six Sigma program, which are also known as belts, and complementary, each role has many responsibility in executing a project. So there are four Six Sigma belts. We have Six Sigma Master Black Belt, a Six Sigma Black Belt, Six Sigma Green Belt, and Six Sigma Yellow Belt or White Belt. And there are the complementary roles. So champions and sponsors, stakeholders, and subject matter experts. So we'll know about each and every role uh, in detail. So let's continue. So roles and responsibilities of a master black belt. So they are the most experienced, educated, and capable Six Sigma experts. Master black belts are very technical savvy and with all concepts and tools. Let's understand the roles. So a master black belt guides and certifies black belts and green belts, ensures proper and consistent application for Six Sigma across departments, leads multiple Six Sigma projects. So in organizations where they actually they know the benefit of Six Sigma and they have proper departments where you may have more than one master black belt who will have multiple black belts running different projects across different processes and line of businesses. So is the possible hierarchy that you would see in organizations where they actually deploy Six Sigma at a very high level. They also work with the management to help assess and plan business strategies and tactics. They advise management on COPQ, that is cost of poor quality, and consults on method to improve business performance. Responsibilities: they are responsible for establishing scope, goals, and timelines and milestones, assign and marshal resources for projects, facilitate checkpoints for belt candidates. Now, they facilitate checkpoints, that means they can train and assess different belts like white belt, green belt, and black belts. Update stakeholders and executives. Establish organization's Six Sigma strategy or roadmap. Lead and implementation of Six Sigma. Moving on to black belts, is the most active Six Sigma professional among the Six Sigma belts. The black belt has valuable experience in project management, task management, and team management. Lead multiple projects, train and mentor green belt candidates, and defines and problems and drive effective solutions. Responsibilities, yes. So black belt has multiple responsibilities. Project management, definitely. So define project scope, teams, marshal resources, establish goals, timelines, and milestones. Provides reports and or update the executive to stakeholders and executives. Task management establishes the team's Lean Six Sigma roadmap, plans and implements the use of Lean Six Sigma tools, facilitates project meetings, does project management and of the team's work, and manage progress towards objectives. Team management, he chooses or recommends team members, defines ground rules for project teams, coaches, mentors, and direct project teams. Coaches are the Six Sigma belts, manages the team organizational interface. So, guys, whatever belt information you're getting is a good to know information. You may get questions about what each role is all about, but they will not go into detail when it comes to the green belt exam. So, this is all good to know information. So, wherever I say good to know, need to know, you can make a note of it. And definitely the question bank that I'll be sharing later, possibly the tail end of the fourth day, you will be able to see the kind of questions that you get out of it. Green belt are less intense version of black belt. Six Sigma professional with identical roles and responsibilities. They implement project in addition to other normal job responsibilities, and they mentor the yellow belts or white belts. They help black belt professional in project management, task management, and team management. Yellow belt has enough understanding of Six Sigma to be effective in assisting other Six Sigma belts with their projects. Supervisors, managers, directors, and sometimes executives are usually trained on yellow belt. So they usually serve as subject matter experts regarding some aspect of the process or project. Responsibilities that help define process scope and parameters, contribute to team selection process, assist in information and data collection. They participate in experiential analysis or where you would require brainstorming like FEMIA, process mapping, cause and effect diagrams, etc. Assist in assessing and developing a solution, deliver solutions, implementation. So now the other complementary roles. So in addition to Six Sigma belts, there are few complementary roles like champions and sponsors, stakeholders and subject matter experts. So what is a champion or and sponsor? So they play critical role in successful deployment of Six Sigma. They may be directors, executives, managers. Roles set direction for the project and ensure its success by obtaining resources and funding. So if you remember when we were going to the earlier slides, I did say that in order to run a Six Sigma project, you need the reason you need to create a project charter or project plan is that so that you can obtain the resource and funding. So the champions and identifying the champions and sponsors becomes really critical because they help us to obtain that resource or funding, and they also help us to knock down barriers to progress. See, in real life, any and every company or any department or any person who has been working in that role for a very long time, they are not easy or susceptible to change that we are trying to bring because it's all about change. So getting that person to do what is asked only comes from the top management. We, as a green belts or black belts, it becomes very difficult to convince them. That is the time the champions or sponsors play a major role. Responsibilities. So establish strategy and direction of project, define success, provide resolution for issues, Establish checkpoint for project reviews, enable solution implementation, assisting project team formation. SMEs are the experts of the process or subject matter. So someone who has been working in that department or process for a long time is simple. They are subject matter expert. They have extensive knowledge about the process. They are the one who will tell you what is the process that is being followed on the ground as compared to what is documented. Experience to judge solutions. They have innovative ideas to help implement changes because they have been working in that area for a long time. So they have far more better ideas as compared to a green belt or a black belt who is working on the project. Stakeholders are the owners or beneficiaries of a Six Sigma project. So stakeholder support is vital for the success of project. So stakeholder can be anyone, as I said, it can be your immediate manager, it can be the head of department, it can be any and other every team which is going to be impacted by your process, and obviously the owners of the company as well. So let's take go through key takeaways. So, what is Six Sigma? So, Six Sigma is a business management strategy which aspires to improve the quality of any process by eliminating variations. Sigma levels. Sigma levels measure the number of sigma between the process average and the nearest customer specification. So, sigma level is the measure, 6 is the goal. 99.9997% products are defect free if the process is running at Six Sigma. Six Sigma approach uses a transfer function, which is a mathematical expression of the relationship between the input and output of a system, denoted by y equal to function of x, where y is a measure of output of a process, f stands for function of your inputs, and x stands for factors or inputs that affect the y. DMAC methodology, the systematic and rigorous methodology which can be applied to any process in order to achieve Six Sigma. And Six Sigma belts we just went through. We have Master Black Belt, Green Belt, and Yellow Belt, and the complementary roles of champions and sponsors, stakeholders, and subject matter experts. All right, guys. Any questions before we move on to the next topic? Anyone? Anthony, Adenico, Rosemary? You have understood everything that we have covered so far?
Yeah. I think the concepts are well understood.
Great. So, guys, see, understand one thing. We all are putting valuable time, and I would really love, and there is no question is a silly question for me. It's okay. Please ask. Because if you are not clear, the time and money that you have invested in going through this course, you're going to lose it. So I would really appreciate, I don't even mind spending extra time if you're not clear, but I want to make sure that whatever time you will be spending over these 4 Saturdays, we are covering everything in a way so that you are very well prepared to secure good marks in your green belt exam as and when you are planning to give it. Right? Okay, so let's continue. Now we'll move on to the fundamentals of Six Sigma. On completion of the course, you will be able to define process and process maps and list types of process maps. Explain the terms voice of customer, critical to quality, quality function deployment, and cost of poor quality. Build an affinity diagram and a CTQ tree and house of quality. Create a Pareto chart. So defining a process. A process is a set of activities or tasks that produce a specific service or product for a customer. Process map, it helps to determine the beginning and end of a process as well as the steps and decisions in between. It helps set project scope, identify value added and non value added steps, identify a problem in a process, etc. Now, process map is a graphical approach of understanding how the process works at a very high level. Now, you can make a very detailed process map. Definitely take time, but more details you add, the more bigger it becomes and more complex it becomes. So we'll see how it is done, what are the different kind of process maps, but this is the first thing after you do your project charter and all those things. After you have created your project charter, after you have created, so you need to first understand the process. That is very important. For that, process map is the best way to identify how the process functions at a very high level. So let's see about process map and how to define it. So process map is a graphical representation of a process flow. It is a step-by-step visualization of a business process and depicts how material and information, so guys, note it, how material and information sequentially flow within a process. It will be in a sequence. It helps to understand and drive discussions around the process and display inputs and output of each individual process step. It also illustrates who is responsible for each step in the process. So process map is very important for any organization. It helps to define or narrow down the scope of process, identify non-value adding steps, analyze potential failure points in a process, identify the points where employees aren't adhering to process. To identify potential failure points of a process, be honest when defining the current state. So when I say current state, what do you mean by current state? Something, a process is documented, let's say there is already a process flow, but what exactly is working on ground is the current state. Okay. Or current state process map can also be the other word that can be used. So we need to understand some very basic symbols before we start plotting or charting a process map. So basic symbols, terminator oval. So this symbol denotes a start or end point of a process. It could happen that you may have one start point and you have multiple start points as well. If there are projects or processes which are merged, but it can happen that you may have two ends in a process or two endpoints in a process as well. Process rectangle, this indicates a single process step. The decision or diamond box, it helps you to put a choice question, yes, no, true, false kind of stuff. And flow line shows the direction of the process flow. Now these are alternative symbols. Good to know. Uh, Alternate process indicates a process step as an alternate of a normal step. Predefined step so indicates a formally defined process step. Other documentation or instruction is needed to support further details of the step. So it may happen, as I said, process map totally depends on how you build it. If you want to make it really detailed, it can be very big, it can be very difficult to identify. So try and see if you can keep the process at a very limited uh, steps, and then you can actually have predefined processes captured around it to make it simple to understand. The next step is manual operations, indicates a process step conducted manually. Then the rhombus sign is indicates a preparation step, and the delay sign indicates waiting period in a process. File and information system, this is mostly used into IT or network process maps. Good to know. I'm not going to go through it, but you it's good to know information if you are going to work on a project that requires IT or network related process flows to be made. Control flow symbols, these are mostly used in manufacturing. So merge, extract, or summing junction, or even networks sometimes. How to plot a process map? So what do you think? What is the first thing, guys, you need to do in order to start or plot a process map? Say I want to plot a process map to prepare a tea. The first thing I need to do is what is going to be the starting point, and then my end goal is that I need to have a cup of tea ready. So the first and most important thing to map a process map is this. So step one, identify and define the beginning and the end point of the process. Very important. This way you are scoping the process. You are saying this is the start and this is the end. You are not going to digress. You are not going to go before or after the start and end point. Second, determine the sort of process steps into proper order. So usually we consult the process SMEs and or observe the process to understand how a process is actually performed. Now, if you see, the best way to do it is to actually write down the process steps one by one. And then when you are about to make a chart, just insert that text into it. See? Third step, fill the step information into appropriate process symbols and plot the diagram. Map the process with sticky notes of different colors on whiteboard and record the map using Excel, PowerPoint, or Visio. So in real life, you always will first thing define the start and end point. Try to make a note of all the process steps on a piece of paper or on a whiteboard, or the best way to do it is to actually write down each process step on a sticky note and then paste it or put it on a whiteboard so that you can actually depict it as a process flow. Use swim lane process map to depict the responsibility of the process step. Now, when I say swim lane, if you see business unit 1, 2, and 3, these are nothing but swim lanes. So this actually bifurcates the entire process flow into three different units. So just by looking at this, I'll come to know if this particular process step belongs to which business unit. So that is what swim lane is all about. It can be done vertically or horizontally. So this is a horizontal process flow. I can make it vertical as well. Swim lanes show how organizations roles or functions within a business. So swim lane, I always prefer using swim lane. Let me show you something if I'm handy. Swim lane diagram. You see. So file. Sorry guys, I'll open it in different tool. Close browser. So this is a vertical swim lane process flow that you see in front of you. So here it's incident management process followed in IT company. So how it starts and where it ends. And there are diamond boxes used in between to identify if there is a yes and no and what happens after each yes and no and where exactly it moves. So the arrows actually denote the flow of the process, and this three different swim lanes identify three different departments and how exactly the process. So accordingly, I'll come to know who is responsible for which process step. So this is done, or this particular diagram has been made in a tool called as Visio, Microsoft Visio. Um, it doesn't come along the standard Microsoft bundle or Office. It has to be purchased separately, but you can get a trial version from online. Okay. Any questions so far that in plotting process map? Everyone is clear?
Well, I think she could. Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Right. All right. Now let's see identifying and recording the input output. So identify and record the inputs X and output Y of each process step. Identify the vital few inputs which have significant effect on the outcome of the process. Analyze the inputs qualitatively and quantitatively to understand how to monitor and control variation in a process. In the transfer function, X's are the inputs and Y is the output of the process. So if I say start point, I might have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 inputs, and this is the final output. So I'm just giving an example, guys, because this process flow is completely blank. So there might be, I can say that there are 6 inputs measures and 1 output measure. Okay. Out of this 6 x's, then we have to do further analysis. So at least you know how many x's you have in the process now, how many inputs you have in the process now. Okay. So this is one of the ways to identify your x's. Evaluate the process map. So evaluate the process map and adjust if needed. Create additional detailed sub-process maps if the process is too complicated to be covered in one single process map. Number of process steps in the order of their occurrence for clarity. Okay. So now we'll look into different kind of process maps. So the first one is high level process maps. So most high level process maps are also referred to as flowcharts. The key to a high level process map is to oversimplify the process being depicted so that it can be understood in the most generic form. So as a general rule, high level process map should not have more than 4 to 6 steps. So below is an example, oversimplified version of a high level process map of cooking a 10-pound prime rib for a dozen holiday guests. So it says, so if you see the symbol, it starts preheat the oven, prepare the meat, cook the meat. Is it done? No, then again cook the meat. Is it done? Yes. Remove and let it sit and then crave and serve, carve and serve. Okay. So this is a very simple or you can say a high level process map. It doesn't talk about detailed steps. So if I say preheat the oven at what degree, I don't know. Prepare the meat. What exactly it means, I don't know. Cook the meat. Yeah, I know what cooking is, but I don't know what is the process. Remove and let it sit for how much time? Carve and serve. How much I have to carve, how much I have to serve, what kind of plate. So I can go much more in detail, but a high level process map will only give you a simplified version of what exactly the process looks like. A detailed process map. A detailed process map or multi-level maps take the high level map much further. Detailed maps can be 2 to 4 levels deeper than your high level process map. A good guideline used to help create the second level is to take each step in the high level map and break it down into 2 to 4 steps, not more than that. So let's repeat this process level 3, level 4 until reaching the desired of level of detail. Some detail map are 2 or 3 level deep, other can be 5 to 6 levels deep as well. Obviously, the deeper the levels, the more complex and more burdensome. Let's take an example. So at the left is our prime rib cooking example at level 2 detail. This process map has a few more decision points and process steps. You can see that going only one more level deep adds a fair amount of information to the process map. So if you see, we are looking at the same process of preparing a 10-pound prime rib, but we have added one more level. So we are saying let meat stand at room temperature for 4 hours. Then preheat the oven at 400, prepare seasoning, rub seasoning on the meat, and so on and so forth. So if you see, just by adding one more level, the process map has become big, but it's giving me much more insights into how the process actually works. Okay, so this is how a detailed process map is prepared. Clear, guys? Any questions around this? Okay, functional process map. Now, the functional map adds dimension to the high level or detailed map. The dimension added is identifying which function or job performs the step or makes a decision. Below is a generic example of a functional map. Note that functions are identified in horizontal lane and each process step is placed in the appropriate lane based on which the function performs the step. So this is again swim lane diagram. Looks something like this. So you have function 1, 2, 3, 4, and the process flow moves across it. By preparing a functional process map, you come to know which function or which team is responsible for which process step in the entire process flow. That is the whole idea of creating a functional process map. And usually we create a functional process map when our process involves multiple teams. Okay. Right. Moving on to VOC and CTQs. So this is again very important as helps to get insights. So VOC stands for Voice of Customer. Voice of the customer is a term used for data-driven plan to discover customer wants and needs. VOC is an important component to a successful Six Sigma project. There are also other voices that needs to be heard when concluding projects. So three primary forms are voice of customer, voice of business, and voice of associate. So gathering VOC should be performed methodically. The two most popular direct methods to collecting VOCs are indirect and direct. Indirect data collections of VOC involve passive information exchange. So they might come from warranty claims, customer complaints or compliments, service calls, and sales report. Indirect methods are less effective, sometimes dated, require heavy interpretation, and are more difficult to confirm. So if you see customer when they are happy or when they are not happy with the service or products that they are receiving, the information that they pass on will not be always accurate because that information that they are passing upon is mostly driven by emotions. If someone is happy, they might say, "Oh, thank you very much. Your product is amazing." But if the same product doesn't work as their expectation is, they might exchange the the argument might be heated argument. They might not be happy. If you ask them to give a survey, they might end up giving a very bad survey. So they are very ineffective methods and they are very dated and they may require quite heavy interpretation. And that's the reason indirect methods are a bit difficult. Moving on to the next one is the direct method of data collection. Now, these are done through conducting interviews, conducting customer surveys, conducting market research, and hosting focus groups. Now, direct methods are typically more effective for several reasons because less need to interpret meaning. Researchers can go a little deeper when interacting with customers. Customers are aware of that participation and will respond better upon follow-up. Researchers can properly plan engagement like questions, sample size, information, collection technique, and so on. So, for example, if I want to uh, find out if I will be able to sell Tesla in Nigeria, I will not go to every door. I might go to a GRA or some rich guy or bankers, people who have money to buy. So if I approach those people who have money and they have a taste for Tesla, like a electric car, I will try to approach them. Then I can actually prepare that kind of questions, what they are looking out for, what is the kind of money they are willing to spend for, uh, what is the color, blah, 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 all those things I can ask. And then the people who are interested, they know that the reason that you are doing a survey is to gather more information and they'll be actively participating. But if I sell something to them and then ask for a feedback, I might not get the kind of uh, proper response that we're expecting to improve the process. So direct data collection methods are better than indirect ones. But again, there's a small problem. Now, gathering VOCs require consideration of many factors such as product or service type, customer segments, manufacturing methods or facilities, etc. All this information influence the sampling strategy. Consider which factors are important and build a sample size around them. Also consider response rates and adjust the initial sample strategy to ensure adequate input is received. Once a sampling plan is in place, collect data via the direct and indirect methods discussed earlier. After gathering VOC, it will be necessary to translate it into something meaningful. That is CDQs, critical to quality. So this is again data based on some stats that even I am not aware of. So VOC remains, this is good to know information. VOC remains a priority investment. 70% of the companies in VOC program have either increased or maintained their financial investment the past year. But many companies don't generate real ROI. Less than 33% of the companies map customer feedback to financial performance. True culture change is rare. Just 8% of the companies can confidently say that they have harnessed the voice of customer to change their culture. So CTQ stands for critical to quality, and CTQs are translated from VOC, voice of customer feedback. VOC is often vague, emotional, or simply a generalization about products or services. CTQs are quantifiable, measurable, and meaningful translation of VOC. Organizing VOC helps to identify CTQ. One effective way to organize VOC is to group or bucket it using a affinity diagram. Now, this is how you can convert or identify organized VOC before you convert into a CTQ. So affinity diagram are ideal for large amount of soft data resulting from brainstorming sessions or survey. So building a CTQ tree or affinity quality to critical to quality tree or affinity diagram. Steps to conduct a affinity diagram exercise. Step 1, clearly define the question or focus of the exercise. So in this case, we are saying why are associates late for work? Step 2, record all participant response on note card or sticky notes. This is a sloppy part and requires some time and effort. Larger number of people, more time it takes, but you have to record everything. Step 3, lay out all note cards or post the sticky notes onto a wall so it's visible. Look for and identify common themes. Begin moving the note cards or sticky notes into the themes until all responses are allocated. Reevaluate and make adjustments. So let's see, why are the associates late to work? Someone said he slept late. Stop light was out. Okay. Long lines at Starbucks. Forgot to set alarm. Couldn't find a parking space. Traffic. Dog threw up. Traffic accident. Kids were sick. Long wait for the elevator. Power went out. Had to take kids to school. Doctor's appointment. And so on and so forth. Now let's reevaluate all these reasons that people have given to for coming late to office. Delays at home. So we have to try to find common themes, and that is what we're doing. Delays at home, delays on commute, kids pet related delays, delays related to building. And then we put these cards or put them in the appropriate bucket that we have identified. So now everything is organized. Now I'm able to identify what can be controlled, what cannot be controlled. So delays at home, slept late, power went out, dog threw up, forgot to set alarm. I don't have complete control as the office owner or the company owner. Delays on commute, traffic accident, stoplight was out, traffic, kids related, delays in the building. So as a company owner, what I can do is there's always long line to Starbucks, so I don't get my coffee and I need a dose of caffeine in the morning when I get up or reach the office. Okay, let me do one thing. Let me put a coffee machine similar to Starbucks. No more delays of people coming late to office because of Starbucks. When find a parking space, I allocate the parking space for everyone, so everyone gets their own designated parking space. Long wait for the elevator. This cannot be fixed because it's a common elevator until unless I have enough money to have my own personal elevator to go up and down, then there's a different part. But this is how you create a affinity diagram or you build a CTQ tree, critical to quality tree. Again, this is can be used standalone as well. When I say standalone, not definitely that you have to run a project, only then you can build a affinity diagram or CTQ tree. Okay? Because this helps you to identify and fix many things. Any questions, guys? Is it clear?
Yes, it's
Any?
okay.
Okay, great. Okay, let's move on. So examples of a generic CTQ tree transport. Let me see something. So example of a generic CTQ tree transfers from a whiteboard to a software package. This is how it looks. So you have critical to quality, you may have multiple parameters, and then you get input. So you have software packages available where you have to put the data in a specific format and it will automatically create a chart like this for you. Okay, so let's move on to Kano model. Now, this is again good to know information. Uh, you may get a question or two from Kano in your greenbelt exam. So another VOC this is a VOC categorization technique. Is a Kano. So it was actually developed by Noriaki Kano in 1980s. The Kano model is a graphic tool that further categorizes VOC and CTQ into three distinct groups: must-haves, performance attributes, and delighters. So Kano helps to identify CTQ. They add incremental value versus those that are simply requirement, and having more is not necessarily better. Say for example, I go to a coffee shop and I I love my coffee with extra cream on top of it. Now, definitely, the person who is serving knows me, and she always drops some extra, cream on top of it, or whipped cream on top of it. But a small amount of whipped cream, I would love, like, it gives me excitement. I'm happy that I'm getting more for the same price. But imagine if the entire cup is filled with cream and the coffee is completely disappeared. I'm not able to enjoy the coffee along with the cream. What's the use? So the example says or means that incremental value, something that just gives me an incremental value as compared to having more is not always necessarily better. I go to I go to a supermarket. I want to buy, say, meat. There's an offer going on. Buy 1 kg, you get 2 kg free. Problem is, I want 1 kg. I'm happy 2 kg. But what will I do for additional 2 kg? I don't want to use it because I'm just going to have it tomorrow, not after that. So it sounds good, but then buy one get two free is not always good. So Kano talks about having must-haves, performance attributes, and delighters. That is what the Kano model is all about. So this is just one page, not too much more into it. Moving on to validating VOC and CTQ. So after determining all CTQs, confirm them with the customer. That is what they mean. Confirming can be accomplished by conducting surveys through one or more of the following methods: group sessions, one on one meetings, phone interviews, electronic means that might be chat, email, social media, etc., or physical mail as well. Consider your confirming audience and try to avoid factors that may influence or bias responses, such as inconvenience or overly burdensome time commitments. Translating CTQs to requirement. Now that I have got VOC from the customers, I have got, I have confirmed or I have converted those VOCs into CTQ. Now it's time to convert that CTQ into requirements so that I can actually work on them. So lastly, CTQ must be transformed into specifics that can be built upon a process in a process. So a requirement tree translates CTQ to meaningful and measurable requirement for production process and products. So on-time delivery. So customer says, you know what, I want on-time delivery every time. So what happens in on-time delivery? So a requirement tree helps you to assess what an on-time delivery looks like and what it should be. So order fulfillment time, shipment process turn time, quality control time. It further move into inventory has to be picked up under 2 hours, order has to set up under 1 hour, production under 4 hours. So this further grows it into a tree, upside down tree you can say. But this gives you a fair bit of idea how exactly a requirement tree works or looks like. Quality function deployment. Okay. So developed by Shigeru Mizuno in 1989 and Yoichi Akao in 1928 in Japan, quality function deployments aim to design products that assure customer satisfaction and value the first time and every time. The QFD framework can be used translating actual customer statements and needs, voice of the customer, into action and design to build and deliver a quality product. Quality function deployment is a construction methodology and quantification tool used to identify and measure customers' requirements and transform them into meaningful and measurable parameters. So, guys, this is good to know information from a green belt perspective. So, I'm not going to go too deep. This is covered heavily in black belt and master black belt. QFD or House of Quality is a very long process or a lengthy process, requires multiple people. We'll just glide through it. As I said, I'll just let you know more from your examination perspective. So QFD helps to prioritize action to advance process or product to meet customers' anticipation. QFD is an excellent tool for contact between cross-functional groups. So purpose of QFD is to market analysis to establish needs and expectation, examination of competitors' ability, identification of key factors of success, and translation of key factors into product and process characteristics. So, four key phases of QFD. Phase one, product planning include house of quality, requirement engineering life cycle. Phase two, product designing, the design life cycle. Phase three, process planning, implementation life cycle. And phase four, process control, testing life cycle. So, guys, this phases are really huge. This requires a lot of brainstorming, meeting, and information that has to be collected from the market before you can actually start doing this particular house of quality or QFT. So, phase one, product planning include house of quality. So, it's more about requirement, gathering requirement. Phase two, the product design, design life cycle. Phase three, process planning, implementation life cycle, and phase four is the testing life cycle of process control. So how to build a house of quality? Determine customer requirements, what's from VOC and CTQs, technical specification, design requirements, the how, develop relationship metrics between what and how. So we have to build relationship between these first two parts. Prioritize customer requirements, conduct competitive assessment. This requires competitor assessment. So who is your competitor in the market? What they are doing, what they are doing good, what they are doing bad, what are the different products that are similar to what you are producing, and so on and so forth. Develop interrelationship between how, prioritize design requirement. So customer requirement what? Technical specification how, relationship matrix what and how, requires technical degree of technical difficulty, overall importance rating, and is a lot into it. Then whys, the correlation matrix, house versus house, customer market evaluation, customer importance rating. So determine customer requirement, identify the important customer requirements. These are the words and are typically determined through VOC-CTQ process. Use the results from your requirement tree diagram as inputs and for the customer requirements in your HOQ, House of Quality. So the reason they call it as House of Quality, because at the end of the day, when the entire process is complete, your diagram or the diagram that you see on the right hand side, it looks more like a house. That is the reason it's called as a House of Quality. Customer requirements, on-time delivery. These are the what's that you see. Increase product quality, alternate solution, reduce turnaround time, optimize resource, reduce COPQ, and high productivity. These are the customer requirements of the what's. Then we move on to the technical specification, that is how. Design and development, supply and distribution, research and development, resource development, asset management, material management, and customer support. Now, this is what you do to get the relationship matrix what versus how. So each symbol that you see, so you are trying to establish a relationship between each technical specification and customer requirement. This is again a brainstorming activity. It requires people from different departments. So a symbol like this is a strong relationship, medium, and weak. And then the customer preferences are given based on that. Then where exactly are custom companies standing, and what are the other two or three or four competitors are standing in terms of this particular that we have created. So we are doing a competitive assessment here. Now, based on this that we have received, you see this is the top portion of the house that identifies the way how items either support positive or conflict negative with one another. So there are different symbols again used here to identify the relationships. That is how versus how matrix. And these are the symbols. Prioritize design requirement. Now, once that is done, we have to gather overall importance rating. So function of relationship rating and customer prioritization rating. Technical difficult assessment similar to customer market competitive evaluation but conducted by a technical team. So guys, as I said, this is just good to know information. I know this might be a bit overboard kind of stuff right now, but the only thing you need to know is what is house of quality and how what are the four phases. These are the typical questions that you'll get in your exam. Okay. I'm really not going to bore you further because, as I said, I remember when I was doing my black belt or even preparing for a master black belt, it took me almost 3 to 4 weeks just to understand and prepare house of quality. in a team of 4 people. That is also the not the right way, but to experience how exactly it is done, it takes a really long time. And our topic was very simple. We when actually you're performing it in a larger organization, it takes a really long time to perform different kind of analysis to actually populate all this stuff. This is how the final house of quality looks like. So pros and cons of a QFD. So focus the design of product or process on satisfying customer needs and wants. Someone pinging. Okay, all is good. Improves the contact channel between customer, advertising, research, and improvement. Quality and production departments to sustain better decision making. So as I said, this activity of performing or creating a house of quality happens in cross-functional teams. This cannot be done by just 1 or 2 people or 3 people. Reduce the new product development project period and cost. Relationship metrics can be too obscure with many process inputs and or many customer constraint. It can be very complicated and difficult to implement without experience. If throughout the process new ideas, specifications, or requirements are not discovered, you run the risk of losing team members' trust in the process. So these are the pros and cons. QFD summary: when used appropriately, the quality function deployment is an extremely valuable approach to product process design. There are many benefits of QFD that can only be realized when each step of the process is completed thoroughly. That is logical way of obtaining information and presenting it. Smallest product development cycle, considerably condensed startup cost, fewer engineering alterations, reduce change in supervision during design process, and so on and so forth. So guys, the only important part that you need to remember is what QF House of Quality or Quality Function Deployment stands for, who introduced it, and what are the 4 phases. So if you can remember this or make a note of it, I think so you should be good from your green belt exam perspective. All right, so moving on to cost of poor quality. Now this is very, very important again. So what does cost of poor quality stands for? So cost of poor quality is the expense incurred due to waste, inefficiencies, or defects in the process. So COPQ has been proven to range from 5 to 30% of gross sales for most companies. COPQ can be staggering when considered process inefficiencies, hidden factories, defective products, rework, scrap, etc. Understanding COPQ and where to look for it will help uncover process inefficiencies, defects, and hidden factories within your businesses. So, cost of quality, what are visible to everyone is rejects, warranty, inspection, scrap, rework. But the hidden factories or hidden ones are a lot. Lost sales, late deliveries, excessive inventory, excessive material order planning, lost customer loyalty, and so on and so forth. So there are 7 common forms of waste that are often referred to 7 deadly muda. Now, muda in Japanese stands for waste. Technically, there are more than 7 forms of waste, but if you can remember this, you can capture over 90% of your waste in your processes. Transportation, unnecessary movements of products and materials. Like I'm just moving a piece of paper from one end of the office to the other end. It is not adding any value to that information that I'm carrying. So transportation, any kind of a movement of the product or material is a waste. Inventory, excess products and materials not being processed. Um, any raw material that I purchase. So I remember like very clearly when I was in Nigeria, we had one sister company. Like you both girls can, ladies can actually correlate or you realize. So Indomie, I know there's a favorite brand of noodles that everyone consumes back in Nigeria. That one of my favorites. So the biggest challenge we used to face is having raw material, excessive raw material, because the manufacturing was high. Having flour for producing those noodles was really important. Now the problem is we had to always purchase extra because of the kind of demand in the market, but not necessarily that after producing we will sell it quickly. That is the time company identified that it's high time we cannot just keep on buying it from the market. Again, there are delays. Sometimes we get early. Company decided to go ahead and have their own flour plant where they manufacture the flour required for the manufacturing process. So excess products and materials not being processed is also a waste. So any kind of inventory is technically a waste because it is not helping you to convert it into money. Motion, unnecessary movement, people walking, yeah, it's a waste. It's motion. Waiting, wasted time waiting for next step in the process is again a waste. Overproduction, production that is more than needed or before it is needed. Overprocessing, more work or higher quality than is required by the customer. Defects, effort caused by rework, scrap, and incorrect information. So, if you are able to identify these seven forms very clearly, you will be able to capture 90% of the waste in your system very easily. This one is additional to the seven: talent, underutilizing people's talent, skill, or knowledge. So we have fresh graduates hired from colleges whom we consider that they don't have any experiences, and we don't realize that they have also learned a lot of things in their while they were studying or doing their projects, and we don't utilize that talent. So underutilizing people's talent, skill, or knowledge is also a waste because that person has been hired to perform some task. If you don't know what he's good at, you are wasting time and money both. All right, so these are seven deadly mudas or seven forms of waste. Moving on to cost of poor quality, those seven deadly mudas are very important to understand. They are best way to identify the COPQ. The presence of any muda causes many other forms of inefficiencies and hidden factories to manifest themselves. There are four categories of cost related to muda: cost related to production, cost related to prevention, cost related to detection, and cost related to obligation. So let's look into each and every cost. So costs related to production are direct cost of the presence of a muda. These forms of COPQ are usually understood by easily observable. They are in fact all the seven deadly mudas. So the cost related to production is nothing but all the seven wastes that we just went through. Defects, overproduction, overprocessing, inventory, motion, and transportation, waiting. If you want to, I know these are seven. If you want to remember them very easily, the acronym or short form is TIMWOOD. TIMWOOD. T stands for transportation, inventory, motion, and wood is waiting, overprocessing, overproduction, and defects. You will definitely get a question on COPQ or the forms of defects, and you should know this very well. So, Tim Wood, if you remember this acronym or short form, you will be able to expand it and remember the seven deadly Muda. So 7 defects. Any questions, guys, so far? Everyone is clear?
What exactly is the difference between motion and transportation?
Motion is more to do with movement of people within a specific area or within the area. Transportation of is movement of moving goods or services or people from point A to point B. So me walking within my office space is motion, and me moving from office to home in a car is transportation. Clear? So that is the
Okay,
difference.
okay,
So
okay.
yeah. So let's take an example to make it much more clearer why this is considered to be a cost or cost of poor quality. So say for example, um, I'm working at Mr. Biggs, and um, I sell burgers, and then I have to get some ketchup. Now, usually when people are at the counter to get their order, if I keep that particular machine or vending machine for ketchup just next to it, it will be easy. But if I keep it an extreme end, and every time someone asks for egg ketchup, I just leave the counter, walk 10 steps to get ketchup and come back. So me walking to that ketchup machine, coming back to the counter is not adding any value. Actually, it is wasting time. I can do something more during that time. So motion is always a cost of poor quality. And if I have to keep on, so for example, so this is the example I can give for motion. Transportation. So I have ordered, say, 100 cartons of Indomie noodles, and I tell the manufacturer, you know what, transport those 100 packets to my factory or to my warehouse. Now, moving those 100 packets or 100 cartons of Indomie noodles is not adding any value to that product. When I say adding value, is not increasing the taste, it's not increasing the value in terms of money. It is just moving the goods from one place to the other. Or it can be happening that they are moving goods within the factory from one place to the other just to clear out the other place. So transportation is not adding any value to the product or production. That's the reason is also the cost of poor quality. It's a form of cost of poor quality. Okay. So is that example good enough? Is it clear now?
Yeah, it's a good enough example.
Okay, great. All right. Now let's move on. Costs related to prevention of MUDA. These are associated with trying to reduce or eliminate any of the 7 deadly MUDAs. So cost of error proofing methods or devices, cost of process improvement and quality programs, cost of training and certification. So any cost directly associated with prevention of waste and defects should be included in COPQ calculation. So you guys learning greenbelt, possibly sponsored by company so that you can learn and implement quality measures in place. So this is also a cost, prevention cost, preventing for errors not to happen, for preventing to make sure the process is more efficient. So any kind of cost which is incurred towards preventing any errors is cost of prevention. Okay. Moving on to cost related to detection. So cost related to detection of MUDA are those associated with trying to find or observe any 7 deadly MUDA. So cost for sampling, cost for quality control or checkpoints, cost for inspection cost for cycle count or inventory accuracy inspection. Any cost directly associated with detection of waste and defects should be included in the COPQ calculation. Cost related to obligation. Now, this is more to do with the customer. We are obligated towards our customer, like any kind of repair cost, warranty cost, replacement cost, customer returns, and customer service overheads. So any cost directly associated with the customer obligation should be included in the cost of poor quality cost. Like I open a contact center to support the product that I sell. Now, if I'm getting say 1,000 calls every day and I'm paying salary to all those call center executives that are working for my product, that is a cost. That is an obligation that I'm obligated to help customer with the product that I have created. But that adds to the cost of poor quality. So there are two types of cost considered when determining COPQ. Some so it is hard cost or soft cost. So hard cost is something that is tangible that can be traced in the income statement. Soft cost are intangible costs. So it can be avoidance, opportunity cost, lost revenue that cannot be captured as income in an income statement. Okay. Calculating the COPQ. Determine the types of waste that are present in your process. Estimate the frequency of waste that occurs. Estimate the cost per event, item, or time frame, and do the maths. Usually, it's very simple. It is written here, but yeah, it requires to get that data or especially the financial numbers behind it. You have to get approval, and this numbers actually comes from the finance team, at least the base numbers, so that you can do the maths. Pareto chart and analysis. Okay, so time. All right, guys, let's do one thing. We'll take another 10-15 minutes quick break. We'll start with Pareto chart and analysis. I'll tell you where we will stop today. We'll try to complete Six Sigma matrix. Um, we'll try and see if we can complete Six Sigma matrix today. But Pareto chart is simple and easy to understand. I will show you the tool that we are going to use. So let's take a quick 15 minutes break. Be back in 15 minutes so that we can start with Pareto chart and analysis. Is that okay with everyone?
Yes, it's okay.
Great. Hello guys, is everyone back? Anthony, Adenike, Rosemary, are you guys back?
Yes, I'm back.
Okay, great.
Yeah, yeah.
Rosemary is back. Okay, great.
But
All right, let's
Anthony's
begin. Okay, let me just quickly try and see if I can get my tab up. So guys, this is the software I was talking about that I'll be sending it to you. And as I said, you have to install it on your personal computer, cannot be an office one because it may not allow you. It looks similar to Excel, but I'll take you through the different tools through this particular software. Okay. So let's begin with Pareto chart analysis. Now, Pareto principle. The Pareto principle is commonly known as the law of vital few or 80-20 rule. It means that the majority, that approximately 80% of the effect, comes from a few, approximately 20% of the causes. This principle was first introduced in early 1900s and has been applied as a rule of thumb in various areas. Example of applying Pareto principle: 80% of defects of a process come from 20% of the causes. 80% of the sale come from 20% of the customers. So 20% of the efforts give 80% of the result, something of that sort. So in reality, it will not be always approximately 80-20. Sometimes it might be 70-30 as well. It might be 25-75 as well, but it will be nearby the same range. So let's dig further into it. So the Pareto principle helps us to focus on the vital few items that have the most significant impact. In concept, it also helps us to prioritize potential improvement efforts. Since this 80-20 rule was originally based upon the work of Fritz Pareto or Wilfredo Pareto, the Pareto principle and references to it should be capitalized because Pareto refers to a person, proper noun. Mr. Pareto is also credited for many works associated with the 80-20, some more loosely than others. Pareto's law, Pareto's efficiency, Pareto distribution, etc. So, Wilfredo Pareto was an Italian economist. He actually coined or he actually discovered Pareto principle. So, in the first time when he released this idea, he said that 80% of the money is with 20% of the people in Italy that time around. That is how the principle came into existence, and it is being used since then. So let's look at the Pareto chart, how exactly it looks. So Pareto chart is a chart of descending bars with an ascending cumulative line on the top. So it is a mix of a bar chart and a line chart. So you may get a question that which chart looks like a bar and line chart. So Pareto chart is the answer. Sum or count. Now, descending bars on the Pareto chart may be set on the scale that represents the total of all bars or relative to the biggest bucket depending on the software you are using. Percent to total. A Pareto chart shows the percentage of the total individual bars. This is the percentage. Cumulative percentage. A Pareto chart also shows a cumulative percentage. For each additional bar, the data points of all cumulative percentage are connected into ascending line on top of all bars. Case study. Okay. Now, there are different softwares available to actually run statistics. The one I'm going to use is Minitab. We also have something called a Sigma Excel or JMP to run Pareto chart. So below is a table um, that shows the count of defective products by team. So we have count and category. So we have team 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and others, and the count of defects each team has produced. Input the table data in your software and follow the instructions next to the page of appropriate software. So steps to generate a Pareto using a mini tab. Open spreadsheet. Okay, so let's do it. So here we will say team and defects. So I'm just putting it here, guys. If you have, I'll be also sharing you sample data that can practice different tools on. So I'll say team 1, team 2, team 3, team 4, team 5, and others. And I'll put any numbers just to right? So the data has been entered. So if you see, this sheet looks similar to an Excel sheet or a worksheet, but here the column names have to be entered on top. The data only comes in this section. Okay. So now let's go back. So they are saying open the spreadsheet with the count data of individual categories. We have done that. We have opened a worksheet and entered the data here. Now click on stat, quality, and Pareto chart. Stat, quality, and Pareto chart. In the new window, the title Pareto chart pops up. Select category in the defects or attribute data and count in the frequency box. Sorry. Why it is not showing it? Did I make a mistake? Oh, it has mentioned count and category the other way around. Okay. Still. Go to stat, quality tools, Pareto chart, the count, and why it is not okay. Frequency. Select category into the box, defect or attributor, and count and frequency. Count. Okay. Let's just click on OK. And this is your Pareto chart ready. All right, now let's go back to the presentation and we'll get further information on this one. So this is how easily you can create a Pareto chart in Minitab. That's how simple it is. And you can actually export this data as well if you want to put it in a presentation. You can save it as a picture and stuff. So this is the data. This is how we did it. It is giving us step-by-step instructions how to do it. Click on OK, and this is what you get. So the above Pareto chart generated in Minitab presents the count of defective products by teams. So we have all the teams here, and each team bar represents its respective count. The bar are descending on a scale with a peak at 50, which is approximately the total count of all defective products in the team. The below table, the table below the chart contains counts, individual percentage, and cumulative percentage. So we have individual percentages and cumulative. So cumulative is added. So 50, then 27.3 makes 77.3, and so on and so forth. The cumulative percentage are the red data points driving the red line that spans across the graphs. So Pareto analysis is used to identify root cause by using multiple Pareto charts. So what we just did is just create a single Pareto chart. Okay. Now this way I'm able, so if I have to say 80-20 rule, so if I want to understand which are the top two teams who are contributing close to 80%. So I just need to look at this bar 80%. It comes here somewhere, but yeah, it is not completely 80. So these two teams, team 4 and team 2, are causing 77.3% of the defects of the 100% defects. So if I fix these two teams, I will be able to reduce 77.3% of defects. So this is how a Pareto chart is created in Minitab. But this is not the end. There's further to this. There are multi-level Pareto charts also created, which is called a Pareto analysis. So let's look into that. So Pareto analysis is used to identify the root cause of by using multiple Pareto charts. In Pareto analysis, we'll drill down into the bigger buckets of defects and identify the root cause of defects that contribute heavily to total defects. This drill down approach effectively solves a significant portion of the problem. Next, you will see an example of three-level Pareto analysis. So the second level Pareto is chart that is a subset of the tallest bar on the first Pareto, and the third level Pareto is a subset of the tallest bar in the second level Pareto. So let's see what exactly it means. So you have seen this chart. This is the first one that we have done. Now we'll go to level 2. So here, this is the first level that we have created just now. First level Pareto shows the count of defective items by team. Next level will only show the defective items by team 4. Second level Pareto. So here in team 4, there are 4 sections: section 3, section 5, section 4, and other. So it shows the count of defective items by section 4 only, team 4 only. Next level will only show the defective item by section 3 because section 3 is having almost 14 errors. So we'll now look who is causing 14 errors in section 3. So now in section 3, there are 3 people who are working: Dave, Stam, and other. The third level Pareto shows the count of defective item by associate for only section 3 of team 4. Next level will only show the defective items of Dave. Now, if you see, after drilling down to 3 levels, we find that most of the defective products are from Dave, who is in section 3 of team 4. Determining what Dave might be doing differently and solving that problem can potentially fix about 30% of the entire defective products, 13 out of 44. Understood, guys? How Pareto is done and what is Pareto analysis? Any questions in this? Everyone has understood Pareto analysis? Everyone is good. Adeniki, Rosemary, and Anthony. Everyone is good.
Yeah, so basically seems that we are narrowing down from the major, sort of the one that
Yep.
shows has the greatest cause,
Yep.
and then we narrow down trying to find out which exactly is causing that problem, right?
Absolutely right.
Okay.
So this is one of the ways Pareto can be used to further drill down and find out the actual root cause. So this way you are actually identifying or fixing, as per this example that we have in front of us. If I'm able to drill down further one level at a time, and I was able to identify that Dave is a guy who's making most of the defects. So if I fix Dave by giving him training or taking some kind of action, then automatically I'm reducing 13% of the defects or 13 defects. That is like straight 30% reduction in defects. So that is what you're absolutely right, Anthony. That is what it is. It's about drilling down, finding out the root cause and fixing that part. That is what Pareto analysis is all about. Okay. All right. So now that we have concluded Pareto analysis, we will move on to Lean Six Sigma projects. Now, in completion of the course, you will be able to understand and explain Six Sigma matrices, learn an importance of project charter and its key elements, explain team development and key features of a successful team. Six Sigma matrix. Now, we need to learn this matrix because this is what will help you to determine uh, different measures across that we'll be using across different phases. So in addition, so there are many Six Sigma metrics or matrices and or measures of performance used by Six Sigma practitioners. In addition to the ones we will cover here, several others, Sigma level, CP, CPK, PP, PPK, talk time, cycle time utilization, will be covered in other modules throughout the training. Six Sigma matrix of interest here in defined phases are defect per unit, defect per million opportunities, yield, and rolled throughput yield, RTY. So let's understand what DPU stands for. And this is really very important because this forms the basis of calculation for DPMO and RTY as well. So DPU stands for defect per unit. DPU is found by dividing total defects by total units. Okay. For example, if you have a process step that produces an average of 65 defects for every 598 units, then your DPU is 65 divided by 598. But before we move to defect per unit, there is something smaller than defect per unit. So, can anyone tell me what do you guys understand by defect and defective? Anyone? When I say a defect and when I say defective, what is the difference between both of them? Rosemary?
Sorry, I didn't get that. Difference between
Hmm. Yep, go ahead.
between what?
Yeah, go ahead, Nico.
Yes, I didn't get the question. Difference between what?
Difference between defect and defective. Defect and defective. So what, when I say defect, what do you mean by the defect? And when I say defective, what do you understand by defective? Anyone? Did everyone get the question that I just asked?
Probably I would say
Mhm.
that probably a defect. Okay, we know what a defect is, but now the difference is that okay, a defect might be one item or one course, while defective is a summation of several defects. I thought.
Okay, okay, yeah, I get that now. Defective. Okay, I think can you hear me? Vishal, are you there? Vishal, are you there?
Guys, am I audible now? Everyone? Guys, am I audible?
Yes, yes. You're audible. We can hear you now.
Uh, yep. I can hear. I'm audible. Yes, thank you, but I can't hear you guys. Um, can anyone say anything? Because I'm not able to hear anything. Everyone is mute.
Hello. We can get in right.
Yeah. Just give me a minute. I'm really sorry for this. Just give me a minute.
We cannot hear you. Probably you can try to refresh on your side.
Guys, can you hear me now? Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
I'm sorry. I'm really ashamed. It's all rubbish with my headset today. Yep, let me first do one thing. Let me just quickly copy your email address before I boost it again. Uh, all right, great. Okay, so let's quickly continue with this. Okay, so roll throughput yield. You may have noticed that in order to calculate RTY, we must determine the yield of each process step. Before we get into calculating yield, there are few abbreviations that we need to be declared. So abbreviations, defects stands capital D, unit capital U, defects per unit is DPU, and yield is Y. Then there is a mathematical constant that has to be used across, that is E, that is nothing but 2.7A1828. So yield of a process step is the success rate of that step or the probability that the process step produces no defects. In order to calculate the yield, we need to know the DPU and we can apply it to the yield calculation below. So let's say for example, this is a formula yield equal to E raised to minus DPU. So let us assume the process step has a DPU of 0.159, 0.109, 0.109, 65 divided by 598. So 65 is the defects and these are the number of nodes. Yield equal to 2.718 raised to minus 0.109. That rounds to 0.8967 rounded to 90%. So this is how you find yield of a given process step. And then you find yield of each and every process step to get the RTY. So if you see process 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, below is the table using the above process yield that we used in earlier RTY calculation. This is how it is calculated. So here we have also identified the DPU. So process step had 65 defects, 598 units. The DPU was this much, the yield was this much, and RTY is this. So then it is all these numbers are multiplied and you get a final RTY, a roll throughput yield. Now by doing this, you come to know which process is adding more or less of defects by doing RTY. So let's look more into it. So this using this is the estimate method. This is another way of finding RTY. It's called yield estimation method. It is possible to estimate yield by taking the inverse of DPU or simply subtracting DPU by 1. So yield estimation 1 minus DPU. So if you just minus the DPU, you don't have to go to the calculations. If you just minus 1 from DPU, you will get this number straight away. You don't have to find the yield and do all those things. That is what the other method is. So, guys, let me just quickly check project charter. So we have 10 to 12 minutes. Actually, we have lost quite some time because of this headset thing. I don't want to start with project charter today. Is it okay if we stop for today, guys, and we continue from next week from project charter? Yes, no?
It's okay for me.
Okay. Anthony, Rosemary, is it okay if we stop here for today? Like we will, I know we have lost a lot of time, but I'll make sure that we cover it next week.
Yeah, that's okay.
Rosemary, you're fine with that? Yes, Rosemary, I will share the slides. So that's the reason I have taken your email addresses. So I'll just show you what exactly I'm going to share. Just give me a minute. Mm. So you will get all these 5 slides defined. So whatever content that we are going to use, that is going to be there. Plus, SSGB bundle. So this is what I'm going to share apart from the slides. So you will have, apart from this, so you have the course PPT that is there, definitely. Then you have some 29 ebooks. Now this includes green belt, black belt, and master black belt books. If you're interested, you can go through this. Now here we have other stuff as well. If you're interested, you can go through it, no harm. Then you have some documents about process capability and stuff in detail. I have also included the Minitab software. You just need to follow the instructions and install it. There is a Six Sigma roadmap that tells what exactly happens in each phase. Then there are Six Sigma tools. This is more of a description of different tools which are used across all the 5 phases. Then this is a refresher, tool refresher. These are support files which are used for Minitab. There are some templates that are used for projects, and then there are a lot of videos. Sorry, it's taking its own sweet time to load. So there are a lot of videos across. So these videos are the same videos that I'll be using across the entire course. Even there are some black belt videos if you guys are interested into. Then you also have data, tools, files, and templates. Now this sample data is something you can use to practice. I'll be using it starting next week. So all the four phases, like define, there are not a lot of tools that we use, but measure, analyze, improve, control. So these are sample data sets that are given to run each and every tool. So for box plot, you will have data. Similarly for scatter plot, run chart, and different kind of tools as and when we go ahead with that. So this is all that. These are the things that you're going to get from me. Apart from that, I will be also sharing few more things. There are um, just sec. Okay, there are Six Sigma question paper. This is a sample paper, question paper from some other institute. You can refer to that as well. I'll be sharing that. Let me just see if I have. Um, you have more. Apart from this, I will be also sharing something that is critical. There's a case study that I'll be sharing with you. So this is actually a live project that was done. This goes through the entire five phases. It also talks about what they did, how they found, so it gives you an overview. It will not tell exactly how they performed it, but it talks about the entire DMAX cycle. This is the actual project report that they submitted at the end of the project. So it talks about each phase, define, measure, analyze, improve, control. As and when you go through it, you will get an idea what exactly it did. This is a project charter, project leader, project champion. So they have mentioned everything, project milestones, which phase will start and end on what date, and so on and so forth. Okay, so this will give you a fair bit of idea and you will be able to correlate with what you have learned with. But this is not something I'm going to share now because it's too early. Possibly in the third week or on the third week or fourth week when we are about to complete the curriculum, that is when I'll share this with you. So you will be able to correlate with what we have learned. And guys, one more most important thing, whatever I